Machao Reichstro. The forest was silent, a heavy silence that cut like knives. Jason, the newly created vampire, smelled fear and something far worse: blood. But it wasn't just any blood. It was Linda's, the indigenous warrior woman with eyes that shone like stars. He found her fallen, wounded, near an ancient altar surrounded by strange symbols. A huge wolf howled in the distance, a sinister threat. Linda was weak, but her eyes, even filled with pain, met his. A look that spoke of a deep secret, a secret that could save or destroy them both. What happened to Linda? And what do those ancient symbols mean? The dark forest whispered dark secrets, a labyrinth of shadows hiding dangers at every turn. Jason, the vampire whose heart still beat strongly for Linda, the indigenous warrior woman, held her in his arms. Blood flowed from a deep wound on her arm, a vivid red that contrasted with the paleness of her skin. The air was heavy, charged with the scent of damp earth, pine trees, and blood. A metallic scent that chilled Jason's blood, even though he was a vampire. It wasn't the cold, sweet blood of his kind, but the warm, pulsing blood of Linda. Blood that called to him, cried out for help. Linda coughed, a raspy sound that scratched Jason's soul. Her eyes, normally bright as the night sky, were clouded with pain. Yet a ray of strength pierced the pain, an intense gaze that connected their souls in an overwhelming way. She tried to speak, but lacked the strength. Jason leaned closer, his ear near her lips, trying to catch even the faintest whisper. The altar, she managed to murmur with difficulty. Her voice was a broken thread of silk, about to fall silent forever. Jason looked at the ancient altar, a stone monolith covered in strange symbols that seemed to dance in the weak moonlight filtering through the leaves. They were complex drawings, a tangle of lines and geometric shapes that seemed to move before his eyes. He vaguely recognized them, something familiar from ancient stories, from almost forgotten indigenous legends. It was an ancient language, a secret code, kept secret for centuries by Linda's ancestors. A howl ripped through the silence, cold and menacing, echoing through the forest. The giant wolf Jason had seen before returned, closer now, its ferocious gaze, its sharp teeth, seeming to pierce the darkness. The air became even heavier, the threat palpable, a sinister presence looming over them. The earth itself seemed to tremble beneath their feet. The ground around the altar began to vibrate, cracks opening like bleeding wounds in the earth. From within the earth, a reddish glow began to emanate, like a volcano about to erupt. It was a powerful force, which Jason felt in his bones, a magical energy emanating from the altar, a wild and untamable energy, linked to Linda's ancestral powers. Linda's breathing became more labored. Her eyes, though filled with suffering, began to shine with a strange light, an emerald green light radiating power and strength. The symbols on the altar came to life, shining in sync with the light in her eyes. It seemed that a hidden power, dormant for generations, was finally awakening. The force of the magic was so intense that Jason felt a shock run through his body. He was a vampire, immune to many things, but this magic was different. It emanated a powerful, raw, and ancestral force that left him stunned and full of admiration. The energy pulsed, connecting him to Linda intensely. A spiritual union, a connection that transcended his newly discovered vampiric nature. Suddenly, an agonizing cry echoed through the forest, followed by a furious growl. The giant wolf appeared in the clearing, but it was not alone. Another wolf, as large as the first, fought against it, its eyes shining with the same emerald energy emanating from Linda. It was an ancestral fight, a battle between the wolves and an unknown force, a fight charged with magic and mystery. The two wolves faced each other with immense force, their teeth and claws in a bloody duel. It was a brutal display of power, a titanic battle between supernatural forces. Jason knew, instinctively, that everything was connected to Linda, to the ancient magic that was awakening within her. Her indigenous ancestry revealed itself, showing a strength he could never have imagined. Linda's love and protection were intrinsically linked to ancestral magic, the connection of the heart with ancestry. The fight was intense. The air vibrated with the energy of the wolves, an apocalyptic and frightening scene for the newly created vampire. Jason held Linda firmly, feeling her struggle in his hands, the ancestral force manifesting in her eyes. He knew, with a certainty that left him breathless, that this was only the beginning of an extraordinary journey, a journey filled with dangers, magic, and a love that transcended the barriers between the world of vampires, werewolves, and humans. The dark forest whispered dark secrets as Jason, the young vampire, held Linda in his arms. Her blood, warm and alive, stained the damp earth, a brutal contrast to the paleness of her skin. The howl of the giant wolf still echoed in his ears, a harbinger of the approaching threat. Linda coughed, a weak sound, almost inaudible, but her eyes, despite the pain, shone with an inexplicable strength. "The altar," she whispered, her voice almost extinguished. Jason looked at the stone altar, covered with ancient symbols that seemed to pulse with a mysterious energy. They were runes, he realized, a secret code from Linda's ancestors, a language forgotten by time, a code that held the secret of her power, a power that was now beginning to awaken. The earth trembled. The ground cracked, opening deep fissures that radiated a reddish light, as if hell itself was about to explode. The glow in Linda's eyes intensified, a deep, hypnotic emerald green. The symbols on the altar responded to the light in her eyes, igniting with a magical glow. A powerful energy emanated from them, a raw and ancestral force that struck Jason with the force of lightning. He felt the pulse of this energy, an undeniable spiritual connection, a bond between him and Linda that transcended his own vampiric nature. It was as if Linda's heart and ancestral magic were merging, creating something new, something powerful and frightening. A new howl, closer this time, cut through the air. The giant wolf emerged from the darkness, but it was not alone. Another wolf, equal in size and fury, faced the first in a brutal and savage fight. The two animals attacked each other with supernatural violence, their eyes shining with the same emerald glow that radiated from Linda. It was an ancestral fight, wild and furious, a battle between two colossal forces, a fight charged with magic and mystery. Jason understood. The fight was more than a dispute between wolves. It was a fight for Linda's soul, a fight against the forces that wanted to prevent the awakening of the ancestral magic that ran in her veins. The energy in the forest became unbearable, palpable, almost physical. Jason felt in his bones the force of that magic, the force of Linda's indigenous ancestry, a force so intense that it left him both amazed and scared at the same time. He was between two opposing forces, Linda's ancestral power and the ferocity of the wolves, and felt powerless. His love for Linda made him vulnerable, a new and intense feeling, capable of shaking the structures of his own vampiric nature. The fight between the wolves intensified, the blows precise, the fury raw. One of the wolves fell, wounded but quickly got up, as if propelled by a supernatural force. Jason hugged Linda tighter, feeling her labored breathing, feeling the struggle of ancestral magic against the forces surrounding her. The symbols on the altar shone more intensely, pulsing with magical force. He understood then that it was not just a fight for survival, but a fight for the liberation of a power that had been dormant for centuries, an ancestral power that was in Linda. Linda closed her eyes, as if entering a trance. The light in her eyes increased in intensity, flooding the forest with an emerald green aura. From the altar, a powerful energy began to emerge, a colossal force that made the earth tremble even stronger. Jason felt a deep connection with this energy, an ancestral connection that left him perplexed and full of admiration, but also terrified, because he knew that the fight was only beginning. The fate of Linda, and perhaps his own, was sealed. Love, ancestral magic, the wolves, and the growing battle against the unknown promised a terrifying and exciting continuation. The quest for love in the bloody battle was far from over. The forest was silent, a heavy and oppressive silence that suffocated Jason. He smelled the metallic and warm scent of Linda's blood, the indigenous warrior woman mixed with the damp aroma of the earth and trees. She was in his arms, pale, wounded, but her eyes, even clouded by pain, shone with an inexplicable strength. A distant howl, cold and menacing, cut through the silence, a harbinger of something terrible. Linda coughed, a raspy sound that scratched Jason's soul, and whispered with difficulty, The altar." Jason looked at the ancient altar, a stone monolith covered with strange symbols that seemed to dance in the moonlight. They were runes, an ancestral language, a secret code from Linda's ancestors, a code that held the secret of her power, a power that was about to be awakened. The earth trembled, the ground cracked, opening fissures that radiated a reddish light as if the bowels of the earth were about to explode. Linda's breathing became shallow. Her eyes, once bright, now shone with an emerald green light, a magical and powerful light. The symbols on the altar responded to that light, igniting with an intense glow. It was as if a hidden power, dormant for centuries, was finally awakening. A powerful energy emanated from the altar, a raw and ancestral force that struck Jason like an electric shock. He felt it in his bones, in his newly transformed vampire soul, the connection between him and Linda, a deep spiritual connection that transcended any barrier between species. A cry echoed through the forest, followed by a furious growl. The giant wolf emerged from the darkness, but it was not alone. Another wolf, as large as the first, fought against it, its eyes shining with the same emerald green light that radiated from Linda. It was an ancestral fight, wild and furious, a battle between two colossal forces, a fight charged with magic and mystery. Jason understood. The fight was more than a dispute between wolves. It was a fight for Linda's soul, a fight against the forces that wanted to prevent the awakening of the ancestral magic that ran in her veins. The battle was brutal. The wolves faced each other with supernatural strength. Their teeth and claws made a concert of death, while their eyes shone with ancestral magic. Jason grabbed Linda tightly, feeling the struggle of ancestral magic through her body, his beloved's fight against the unknown. He felt the raw energy pulsing between them, the ancestral power struggling to break through the barriers, to take shape and free Linda from her chains. Linda closed her eyes as if in a trance. The light in her eyes increased in intensity, flooding the forest with a radiant and powerful emerald green aura. From the altar, a colossal energy emerged, a titanic force that made the earth tremble violently. Jason felt an ancestral connection with this energy, a connection that left him amazed and terrified at the same time. It was Linda's ancestral magic, powerful and untamed, about to manifest in all its splendor. He felt immense fear, but at the same time, a deep admiration. It was frightening, but there was something beautiful in the untamed strength emanating from Linda. His love for her increased exponentially, becoming stronger than any other fear. The fight between the wolves intensified. One of the wolves fell, wounded, but rose again, propelled by the same magical energy that emanated from Linda. Her ancestral magic was more powerful than the wild fury of the wolves. Jason knew that the fight was far from over. The dark forest whispered ancient secrets, revealing Linda's ancestral power, a power that could save or destroy them both. He knew that their future depended on the strength of that magic, the strength of his love, the strength of the ancestry that was being awakened in the heart of the indigenous warrior woman. Linda opened her eyes, the eyes of a warrior, the eyes of an ancestor, the eyes of a woman in love. The emerald green light radiated from her eyes, powerful and imposing. The wolves retreated, their gigantic forms shrinking before the raw force of ancestral magic. Jason hugged her tightly, feeling the tremor of her body, feeling the power that flooded her, feeling the strength of his love amidst that bloody battle. He knew that they had to fight together, that their love would be the force that would save them, the link that would keep them united against the darkness. The quest for love in the bloody battle was far from over, but for the first time, Jason felt a spark of hope, a light of salvation amidst the darkness. Linda's ancestral magic and their newfound love were the most powerful weapon they had. The forest fell silent, a heavy, intense silence, broken only by Linda's labored breathing and the rapid beating of Jason's heart. The emerald green light in her eyes slowly diminished, leaving a trail of greenish energy in the air. The two giant wolves, defeated, disappeared into the shadows, leaving a trail of blood and a strong smell of fear. The stone altar, once pulsating with magic, was now just cold and smooth stone under the moonlight. Linda fainted in Jason's arms, exhausted, but with a gentle smile on her lips, a smile that spoke of ancestral power and an uncertain future. Jason carried her carefully, her weight in his arms a weight of responsibility and love. He felt a deep connection with her, a spiritual union forged in that battle. His heart beat strongly, not only from physical exertion, but from what he had witnessed, from the ancestral magic he had witnessed. The forest, though quiet, seemed to whisper dark secrets, a harbinger of new dangers. He knew the fight was not over. Linda was safe, at least for now. But a new danger approached, a silent and deadly danger. As they moved away from the altar, Jason noticed a trail of fresh footprints in the soft earth. Footprints very different from those of the wolves. They were large, heavy footprints, and strangely sharp. They weren't human. They weren't wolf. A chilling fear ran through his veins, a fear different from the ones he felt before when he faced the wolves. This fear was a deep, visceral, ancestral fear. Looking at the footprints, a horrifying image formed in his mind. A tall and slender figure with sharp claws and eyes shining with a blood-red light, a being that did not belong to any of the worlds he knew, a being that carried with it an even more sinister energy than the wolves or even his own vampire kind. The quest for love had led to a terrifying discovery, a new threat that emerged from the shadows, more terrible and powerful than anything Jason had faced before. A being that seemed to watch the battle, watching him and Linda from the top of a tree. A being that was waiting for the right moment to act. Jason, carrying Linda in his arms, felt a wave of terror wash over him. He knew he was in danger, that he and Linda were in danger. The forest, which had previously seemed to have calmed down, was now charged with a sinister energy, a menacing presence that haunted him at every step. The ancient whispers of the forest seemed to intensify, as if the very air was charged with ill omen, death, and danger. He looked back, searching for the source of that fear, of that horrifying feeling of being watched. The dense darkness of the forest revealed nothing, but his vampiric intuition hissed like a snake, warning him of danger. The bloody battle was far from over. Jason's love for Linda, the indigenous warrior woman's ancestral magic, and the hidden forces of the forest intertwined in a whirlwind of emotions, mysteries, and imminent dangers. He looked at Linda, unconscious in his arms, and felt a pang of hopelessness. What would become of them? Could her ancestral strength protect them from the new threat that loomed? And who, or what, was the creature with sharp claws and blood-red eyes that watched them from the shadows? The distant howl, this time coming from closer and more frightening than ever, echoed in his ears, a harbinger of the terror that awaited them. The quest for love in the bloody battle gained a new, terrible chapter. The next episode begins now.